what you're going to be doing is you are going to, in your crime and punishment topic, you're going to have a lot of questions that say, explain why something did something else. So for instance, this question is explain why the government became responsible for law and order in the industrial era. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try and have a go at the bug technique, okay? So that means is you box the command words, you underline the keywords, and then you go back and read again. So for instance, I know this question is an explain why question. Therefore, I'm going to need to use explanation words. I'm going to need to say why this caused that, or why this led to that. So I'm going to need to use words like because, therefore, this meant that, so this happened. I'm going to have to tell that story, but explain how we got from one place to another. So in this case, explain why the government became responsible for law and order. Why did they? Not how did they, but why. So next, we're going to underline the keywords. So a keyword here for me would be government. I need to talk about the government. If I'm not talking about the government, I'm talking about something else, I'm not answering the question. I need to talk about responsibility. Responsibility is about sort of whose job it is. And for law and order, so I need to talk about law and order. Now, I also can't be talking about the medieval period, I can't be talking about the early modern, I've got to be talking about the industrial. So I need to box it, underline it, go back, explain why the government became responsible for law and order in the industrial era. Right, that is my question. You're going to have one very similar. I'm going to show you how to do it, and then you're going to have a go. So make sure you're listening. You can copy this down if you want. I'd advise you just making a note of key things that you need to do. So for instance, first thing I'd do is I would make sure that we plan quickly. You can do this quickly in your head, or you can write it down. So explain why question. This is 9 marks. And for that, we're looking at 3 paragraphs or 3 reasons. Okay, 3 reasons why the government became responsible. So let's have a think about some reasons. What have we got? Why did the government become responsible? Well, what happened in the industrial era? We've got population rising. We've also got crimes on the increase. What else happened? I need a 3rd reason. Well, what crimes happened? Well, we had social unrest. Well, that's really important because it was fear of revolution. What do you think the government would have? Yeah, the government were really scared about that. So I'll probably put in seriousness of crimes on the increase. So say all of these things led to the government becoming responsible. So now that I've got my 3 paragraphs, 1, 2, 3, I can add a little bit of information. So population, we went from 6 to 9 million. Crimes on the increase, what we've got, theft, urbanisation caused more people. Seriousness of crimes, got social unrest. That was really serious. Okay, so we've got a little bit of information there that we can sort of try and pick out. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I would answer one of these, or how I'd write a paragraph about one of these, because just from the 1 paragraph, you can hear what I need to do, or what you need to do, or what makes a good answer, and then that will help you with yours, okay? So I'm just quickly going to rewrite the question here. Okay, so here's our question. Remember, we're explaining why government responsible law and order industrial era. Really, really important. First thing I need to do is I need to introduce my answer. And to do that, I need to use the wording of the question. So I'm going to put WTQ here, because that's something you need to use, wording of the question. So the government became responsible. Well, those underline, those keywords need to be in it. So the government became responsible because it became responsible for law and order in the industrial era because. Now, what was my first paragraph about? It's about because. I can't spell because anymore. Of the increasing population. Okay, so why is that good? Well, I've used the keywords in the question: government, responsible, law and order, industrial era, and I've answered it really, really briefly. So brief answer. But now I need to actually explain what I mean by this. What do I mean by increasing explanation? And I need to add some subject knowledge. Well, first off, let's think government became responsible. Well, what subject knowledge have we got to say the government became responsible? So, for example, the Metropolitan Police became responsible for law and order in 1829. Okay, so really, really important because I've used some key subject knowledge, I've given a date, so now we're talking about the industrial era. But I haven't said why that means the government was responsible. Who were professional, meaning they were paid, and paid by the government, and who was in charge of it at the start? The Home Secretary, Robert Peel, was responsible for. Okay, so I've used some subject knowledge, said who is it, said what year it was, said why it means the government in charge, I've given a name, so that's the person in. But I haven't actually explained why. So I haven't actually said why they had to be. Okay. So the government had to become responsible, remember using the wording of the question, because the population rose from 9 million in 1700 to 42 million in 1900. Well, why is that important? This meant communities grew. Well, what made that worse as well? So let's think if we can get something to make it worse. This meant communities grew, especially cities with urbanization. Remember, it's not just a simple this happened, then this happened because of this. Some things make things worse. So that's why we've talked about urbanization here, because it's making the population worse. It's making it in one place. Therefore, this meant communities grew, especially cities with urbanization, meaning the old system of tithings, using keywords, could no longer work as people did not know each other, so couldn't police each other. Okay, so we've added a little bit of explanation. We've used some keywords. We've used specific knowledge. We've said why it was there. We've said something made it worse. Okay. So that is, at the moment, a good paragraph. We need to end it now. We need to end it. So tidings no longer were. People did not know each other, so couldn't police each other. Get it back to that keyword. So government, therefore, new police run by the government were created to patrol and arrest any criminals, which the old system couldn't do. Okay, so I've answered the question, I've used the wording, I've briefly answered it at the start, I've added some subject knowledge, I've explained why, and I haven't just stopped at one reason, I've added a little bit more, Okay, and I finished off with a sentence that summarises my point. Therefore, new police run by the government were created to patrol and arrest. So if we can only pick out three things, a couple of things to do, so it'd be use the wording in the question, briefly answer at the start, use subject knowledge, explain why. Keep asking yourself why. So, why is that important? What does that mean? Imagine I'm an idiot and I have no idea what you're trying to say. Okay, so that's how you answer an explain why question. You should have plenty of explain why questions either in your booklet or in the case of the Year 10 class, this is going to straight away in the PowerPoint that you're just about to do. Okay, well, I'm back in school tomorrow. Right, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure.